on the Fringe with Dan RadioStyle. I hope everybody out there's having themselves a great day. Apparently, I've gotten myself in trouble again with YouTube, so it's fine. I've been demonetized for, 30 days. We'll see what happens. So, again, something to keep in mind. Also, the things I'm going to be talking about, if you look below the video, you'll notice how they say the AP is called the election. I think that's fine, but that's what a lot of us are talking about right now is the fact that it's not the news or even AP, right? It's not the Associated Press that decides who the president is. They can call it, and that's fine. But ultimately, it's the states that then certify their election results. They're the ones that actually call it, and they're still counting votes. So to me, it seems interesting how they're saying there's already a winner. And again, there's recounts that are actually happening right now. Rudy Giuliani's been in all sorts of places. We're going to talk about that. Got also something I kind of want to remind people of. It's happening this coming weekend. There's going to be a rather large march, apparently, down in D.C. for MAGA. So if anybody's in that area and wants to be a part of it, there is something that is apparently going on. You might want to look it up. I'm sure there's some local information, but certainly something that I thought was worthy of bringing up. Also, something I want to talk about, and we're going to get into a story here in a little bit, but I want to get to it first. But I guess Trump is just hardcore all over Fox News right now. He is all in against Fox. And I don't disagree. And I'll be honest, like the last time I watched Fox, I found myself actually feeling bad. Like I didn't feel good while watching it. It gave me kind of an uneasy feeling. I felt sick to my stomach, right? Obviously, some of this is just because of the way things are playing out. But the way they tell the story, you'll end up walking away and going, oh man, we have no chance. Now, what's recently been brought to my attention, I believe it was Trump that did this, was Newsmax. And I was like, all right, let's check out Newsmax. So I went on, I found out the Cox Cable, who has our cable here, right? They have it. They had the channel. I was like, no way. So I flipped it on. I've had it on all day. It's news. It's talking about the different election results. It's talking about the recounts. It's talking about some of the lawsuits. It's talking about how I guess there's going to be a revote in Georgia. Should be very interesting. So again, a lot of things to look forward to for sure. Secondly, I highly recommend Newsmax. If you're still watching Fox News, get the heck off it immediately. I even rewatched some of Tucker's show recently, and I can tell he's already being kind of controlled a little bit. And you can just tell he's tapering down his rhetoric or preparing for the inevitable, I think, as a lot of people over on that network are treating it. I don't see it that way. There's a lot of other people that don't see it that way. And certainly we've got lawsuits that are being filed. If after everything is said and done and Biden is chosen, right, after all of this, and Biden still becomes the president, again, we've got other things to rest on. And also some of the Senate stuff might change because of Georgia. So a lot of things aren't done yet. And we're still heading in a great direction. One thing I kind of want to give examples of is how the left and the right deal with calamity and trying to, quote, motivate their base and also to give hope. And so it's funny because it's not really hope from the left, but this is an example of the left that the CNN is now insisting that a Trump recount could lead to another 9/11 because apparently there was a recount back in 2000 and then like 9 months later, after they put the president in, we had an attack on this country, right? So the greatest attack on our soil ever. And of course, here's CNN trying to play the fear card. It's what they've been doing with everything. Everything was fear. Remember when Trump got in, the economy's going to collapse, everything's going to go away, Roe v. Wade's not going to happen, all of this fear stuff, none of which happened, by the way, none of which happened. And by the way, he's pulled more troops out of wars than any other president. 3 Nobel Peace Prize nominations because of what he's done in the Middle East. Again, we've done more for our economy, for jobs. There's the courts. There's been so much that's happened through 4 years that these regular politicians seem incapable of doing anytime, 8 years, 16 years, whatever. Doesn't matter. They're still trying to, quote, take care of things that Trump took care of in 4 years. So CNN kind of up to their old antics, and this is just an example of many things. I mean, it's nothing new. But on the right, Florida Governor DeSantis is proposed expanding stand your ground law aimed at looting. So because of everything that happened, because of what we have experienced from the left, because of the understanding that there is no respect for private property, public property, any sorts of things when it comes to just being upset and being able to go out into the streets and peacefully protest, even though sometimes a lot of damage was done during those, quote, peaceful protests. DeSantis is actually looking ahead, looking at his base and saying, hey, here's some good news for you guys. Here's something I'm trying to get it into law. And hey, this will probably help me get reelected. So there are things happening, and they're coming at things from a very different angle. CNN wants to spread fear, and fear and anger seems to motivate the left very well. But it's kind of a weird way to live your life, right? And most of us on the right kind of have a different way of seeing it. We have a future. We're thinking ahead for what we want in our lives. We're not necessarily worried about this little weird minutia and constantly being afraid that we're going to die any second because of climate change or whatever, fill in blank of calamity here. So again, I think this was something that was kind of good news. Also on the side of good news, and we've got lots of these types of things just popping up all over, but we had a brave poll worker that's going public about ballot irregularities in Detroit in an affidavit. Now, I want to explain, I'm not a lawyer, and I don't even play one on TV, but an affidavit is a legally signed document that is also notarized and is also punishable of perjury if you lie in an affidavit. Affidavits are legal documents. It's much like sitting in front of a judge, and that's why there needs to be a notary. That's why you go through that whole process. So just saying that there are no confirmed allegations, if you're actually making an affidavit and it's knowingly false, you will get in trouble. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. So to say that these people's affidavits are just frauds and BS, well, that's a little dangerous to have that attitude just when everyone wants to say that all the votes should be counted, you should believe everybody. Well, that's a little dangerous too, right? We've got some extremes happening here. And we need to recount the votes where they matter. And we need to understand that there are people coming forward and legally putting their names on a piece of paper and saying, I attest that there was some weird things happening. She was talking about how the ballots were scanned and counted multiple times at the facility. She had also attested that Republicans were deliberately disenfranchised throughout the process and robbed of their rights so they could not snuff out any potential fraud. I quote, this is a quote from her, I witnessed countless workers rescanning the batches without discarding them first, which results in ballots being counted 4 and 5 times. Now, maybe there was an issue on one of them, who knows? But again, these are things that look bad. They look bad. Maybe this was a perfectly legitimate thing to do in this particular scenario, but when you're someone kind of looking at things happening, and maybe you're not on the same affiliation as everybody else, you actually can start to see things happening around you that maybe you don't agree with. You could even be on the left, but kind of left center, and go, man, I'm really worried about what's going on here because I was seeing things happening around me that were hard to believe. And I don't want that to happen to our country, right? There is people on both sides of this equation that are going to come out, and there's been supposedly over 1,000 affidavits have come forth. There's some like 254 pages or 234 pages that were put out just for Michigan. So there's affidavits showing up all over the place. Also, we got Rudy Giuliani revealing that the Dominion witness who saw 100,000 votes brought in for Biden. This is a worker for Dominion in Michigan provided an affidavit, again legal, stating 100,000 ballots for Biden were brought in to catch up with Trump. Now, I will say another thing. If you ask someone to fill out an affidavit that's a lie, that's a crime. Asking someone to fill out an affidavit or asking someone to basically perjure themselves is against the law. Even if that person doesn't do it, asking them to is against the law. So for all the people out there saying, well, Giuliani's just making them fill these things out. No, that'd be illegal. And you know, if they got even a second where they could try to go after Rudy Giuliani for malpractice, oh my God, they would do it in a heartbeat. And so I'm quite sure Rudy Giuliani's following the law very well. He helped take down gangsters. He helped take down criminal enterprises. This guy is not someone to be trifled with. He's not afraid of a little bit of a threat. So Giuliani's bringing some more information to our table. Now, again, a lot of the Dominion stuff, I kind of wonder how that gets looked into, because to me, it seems like some of that's maybe a little I don't know, slightly behind the curtain, if you will. So I don't know if they're going to show us that or if they're just going to recount and make sure there's no glitches. Okay, I mean, I don't know. I don't know how they're going to resolve this, but 100,000 votes, that's a 200,000 vote swing. Well, could have been just a plus 100,000. Sounds like they just brought in some extra votes. They didn't necessarily switch votes. So switching 100,000 votes would be horrific. But still, bringing in 100,000 votes is, okay, half of horrific. I don't know what that is, but it's pretty bad. So again, Rudy Giuliani doing his best. Also, Giuliani's all over the place, man. This guy's also filed suits for President Trump for Michigan and Pennsylvania. And it's looking like there's a strong, I'm hearing a lot of information around Pennsylvania. And there's a couple key places in Michigan that really seem to be questioned right now, where recounts are likely going to happen. And I think they're large enough districts to where it could literally shift the state. So there is more evidence that has been coming out. So Rudy Giuliani is filing more of these legal bouts to make sure they put a stop to it. Some smaller example, but it's Iowa, so this is, a decent size number, and apparently was enough to actually cause a change in who the House winner was. So Iowa audits, they find 217 uncounted ballots. Apparently, because of these uncounted ballots, the individual who was the Democrat who was winning for the House election, right, for the House, they were 34 points ahead. Well, after all of this was said and done, it's actually switched. And now we've picked up one more House seat who's a Republican, at least it seems right now, and they're a little bit ahead of the other candidate now. So we had a seat switch just from 217 uncounted ballots. You have to understand, when an area has millions of people, 1% of a million, right, is 10,000. That's a lot. That's a lot. 10% of a million is 100,000. So 10,000 votes changing is a significant amount of people, or 1% of a large population is a significant amount of people. And to have error rates in those sizes could change elections. So there you go. 217 votes only in Iowa that were found that changed the results of the election. One example currently. Trump has been pressing for audit of votes in Arizona. There's a whole bunch of stuff going around with Arizona right now. Arizona's trying to say they're going to redact a bunch of this information because they don't want a bunch of personal information to be seen. But then at the same time, it sounds like they want to be able to see it, so they're arguing back and forth about that. Ultimately, Trump's like, this needs to happen quickly, obviously. It needs to happen before the election is cinched or decided or whatever. So again, a whole bunch of legal stuff's happening, and this is where the Supreme Court for sure would come into play. If legal things had happened and they were ignored and just basically certified the votes anyway, those are the things that we're probably going to see brought back up later. But as it stands right now, Pennsylvania, which is a key state that's going to be important, looks like they're probably going to have some major stuff going on over there. And that's going to be a hot and contested one. That is going to probably be the most exciting area as far as all the crazy goes, right? We've got Georgia. That's going to be a major player and looking like it's going up for a revote. And Republicans are feeling pretty strong right now. They've had all sorts of people out in the streets, and a lot of stuff's been going on out there. And so, of course, we've got that. We've got, Michigan, I think there's a lot of questions. So we've got a lot of electoral votes that are up for grabs. Potentiality of Arizona maybe flipping. And Nevada, as they keep calling it, it's probably the proper pronunciation, don't get me wrong. But there are also some questions going on over there. So there are a number of electoral votes that are kind of up for grabs, if you will, that have already been called in some cases. Like some of these races haven't been called yet, Georgia, for example. But some of these other states have been called. In fact, a lot of people are mad at the AP calling of Arizona, or Fox calling of Arizona, so early. And if that proves to be wrong, which it might, then all of this stuff that, again, we're being censored because of stuff that's probably, we're talking about truth instead of the thing that they're telling us. Instead, the media is saying so-and-so won, but what we're talking about is there's legal processes that are happening, there's recounts that are happening, there are some discrepancies that are being found, there is over 1,000 eyewitnesses, affidavits, whichever, that have been filed. So to say that it's completely in the bag and that we're not allowed to talk about it, a little dangerous. Again, check out Newsmax. Great channel. I've had it on all day. It's been wonderful. Trying to get away from some of these old places, folks. It's going to make a big difference for us. All right, and again, we already talked about the story, but yeah, Trump is pretty peeved at Fox News. Can't blame him. And again, I haven't watched him. I'm done with Fox. I can't imagine going back to that network ever. And from what I'm understanding, their ratings have tanked. They were the most popular right up until the election got decided, right up until election day. And now Fox's numbers have gone through the floor. So again, people are not happy. And as Trump has said, you got to remember who built you, who the golden goose was. And you guys attacked the golden goose. You're done. You're going to be like CNN. You guys are all fighting for the same slice of pie now because nobody on the right is going to follow you. They're going to be watching Newsmax or OAN, One America Network or something like that, whatever it is. One News Network, American News Network. OAN, that's what they call them. The cute reporter in the White House, I know that much. Anyway, President Trump could seek to block certification of disputed results. Here's some more legal action going on. And Trump's literally, the things are happening. Giuliani's the one that's out in public. I assume Trump's got all sorts of lawyers helping him out. I've heard there was concerns from Ted Cruz that there weren't enough. I don't know. I don't know, and I'm certainly not. Ted Cruz is definitely a lawyer, a judge. I don't know. He was something up that food chain, right? So whatever. However this plays out, and again, I think people are afraid to talk about things that go against the deep state, if you will, just because that's going to bite them in the butt, right? And they're just being very careful. It's why no politicians talked about Q or any of that stuff. They were smart not to. That was a great idea not to. So same kind of stuff going on, and we'll see how this plays out. But Trump's got legal cards. There's a number of them to play. The results have to be decided in December, so we've actually got some time, not much, but some time. So we'll see how this plays out. Again, when you watch like Newsmax or something like that, there's a lot of stories that they're talking about. You don't hear anywhere else for matter, but there's a lot of stories that are kind of interesting and wow, it's just nice to see these things, like people being positive when I'm not used to seeing that anywhere else. It's just been such a great eye-opener for me. Anyway, both of Georgia's runoffs, apparently, Senate races heading to a runoff election. There's the presidential election they're talking about also redoing. So Georgia is all up for recounts. There's a lot of people that are excited about that, and that could probably work to the benefit of Trump, is what it sounds like. We'll certainly see. But again, some weirdness has happened in this election. There's examples of it all over. There are eyewitnesses coming forth. There is a lot of evidence to suggest these little small pockets of resistance, if you will, that could, in the big picture overall, add up. Again, we had that one story where 200 and some odd votes were found, and that was enough to switch an election. A lot of these margins are tiny. So for anybody to say, it's not that, it's only 6,000 votes. Yeah, well, 6,000 votes actually matters, and when it's a 12,000 swing, it matters even more. So just because they try to make it, again, this is the media trying to downplay anybody that's got any sort of concern or question about what's actually happening. That is what we're kind of fighting against. And then all the social media platforms, all of them, aren't letting people talk freely, at least about their opinions, talk freely about what they think is kind of happening. You're only allowed to speak one sort of narrative, or else you tend to get punished. And that's kind of how that's playing out. Again, got demonetized myself. Just yesterday got the email. It's like, geez, all right, whatever. Things are starting to look good. I was kind of like, all right, we're going to get through this. We'll see. So that's happening. Also, remember to check me out on BitChute. Got a channel over there. It's On the Fringe is the name of the channel. And again, it's just a good idea. It's ultimately probably where a lot of us are going to end up once these things get played out further. I mean, I assume maybe they want me to stop making videos about these subjects, or they figure the month long is enough to stop any advertising problems. And I get it. I mean, I truly get it from their standpoint. Like, people don't want to put advertising on these types of videos. Like, I get it. So, whatever. It is what it is. Maybe I truly deserve this experience that I'm going through. Doesn't matter. We'll get to the end anyway. But again, check me out on BitChute. There's not very many. I've got a little over 300 subscribers currently over there, and I get thousands of views on each video typically. So yeah, if you guys get a moment to at least hop on and at least make sure you've got a subscribe over there. You don't necessarily have to spend a lot of time. If you want to, it's cool. I would recommend spending more time over in BitChute, but I think they've got some stuff to work out. So we'll see, again, how this all plays out. They've got that new, I don't remember it, but the one that's supposed to take away Twitter, right, to replace Twitter. So that's kind of taken off. Again, people are going to start to come out with these competitions that are going to be against the primary people, right? Your Facebooks, your YouTube, and your Twitter, right? And all I got to do is just copy that for the most part. I mean, you just make it similar. You can make it different enough, but similar that you're not going to be in copyright issue. And then you just make sure you can do the cool stuff that people like, and it'll play out beautifully. So again, we're part of a change right now, folks. Things are happening. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. And however this plays out, we just remember we got to have each other's backs first off, and we just got to stay strong and hope for the best. And if it's not this election, if we truly do lose this election after all the recounts and everything else, all right, well, we'll live to play another day. And that's how this is going to have to play out. And hopefully this is one of those moments in time where enough people kind of woke up to see some of the shenanigans to where maybe the next election is finally the one that goes. People talking about Trump rerunning in 2024, I think is kind of crazy, because if you think about how old he'll be at that point, now Trump might still very well be alive and kicking for sure, but that's 4 years from now. He's already old right now, and then you want to go 4 more years after that. That'd be kind of weird, but it would be the first time that I think we had a president that, got skipped in between and then came back to do his next 4 years. So I don't know, kind of interesting how that's going to possibly play out. Again, there is a lot of things that is not being talked about publicly, and there's a lot of things that are actually going on behind the scenes that you're probably not hearing about. Newsmax, check it out. It's a pretty bitchin' thing. OAN as well. I don't know how to watch them. I don't have them online, but there's probably a channel. I just haven't gone digging. Their website's getting spammed hard right now, getting all sorts of database connection issues trying to connect to OAN's website. So we'll see, again, how all of this finally settles and clears once everything's said and done. We've got still a lot of road ahead of us, folks. Don't get discouraged. There is a lot that would suggest that some of these recounts and everything are going to possibly change the way things were called. And we'll see how that plays out. And certainly, like I said, if they call it the same way after a recount, then all of us need to accept what's going on. But yeah, let's see how this plays out. Remember, united we're strong, divided we are weak. Where we go one, we go all. It's On the Fringe with Dan RadioStyle.